Hello and welcome to the Small Business Briefing, the Thursday edition. I'm Brian Calley, reporting from downtown Lansing, where it's like 89 degrees. I just saw on the thermometer outside.
We have gone from winter to summer in 1 week, but I am not complaining. I will not complain. Hi, everyone. Sarah Miller, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communication at SBAM. Thank you for joining us today. It's Thursday, which means we like to welcome one of our members. And this week, we're actually thanking Veer Accounting for upgrading to a VIP membership last week. Veer Accounting is located in Hillsdale. And of course, we're thanking them on behalf of our sponsor, Marana Group. Marana Group serves to help clients simplify their work processes, and you can visit maranagroup.com to learn more. So Brian, since we last talked on Monday, we learned that the term limit proposal will be on the ballot this November. So walk us through that and what we can expect to be voting on in just a few short months.
Yeah, so a lot of times when these proposals are put before the Board of Canvassers, they go out and get signatures through the petition process and put it on the ballot. So there's like a long process of maybe it'll be on the ballot, maybe it won't. Maybe like the signatures, maybe they won't. And in this case, though, there's a different way that you can put questions on the ballot. The legislature can actually vote to put proposals on the ballot to either change the law or change, in this case, the Constitution. Michigan has had since the 1990s term limits, among the shortest in the nation, actually the shortest in the nation, term limits. And there's been talk over the years about maybe changing them. There's a few other states that have that had the same term limits as Michigan before that have made some changes in the past. And so that was put before the legislature, and a group, pretty diverse group from across the political spectrum, went to the legislature and said, we'd like you to put this proposal on the ballot to have the people consider a change to the constitutional provision limiting terms in the legislature. Right now, you can serve 3 2-year terms in the House or 2 4-year terms in the Senate. So if you do all the math, that adds up to a total of 14 years, 6 in the House, 8 in the Senate. If all the stars align and you serve out maximum terms in both sides of the Capitol. What this proposal does is it does away with the separate term limits for each chamber and says 12 years total, no matter where you serve them. So it could be 12 years all in the House, 12 years all in the Senate, or split up between the two of them, but never more than 12 years. So that's the proposal that the legislature asked, or that a group of very diverse organizations and people went before the legislature, said, would you put this on the ballot for the people to decide? Now, for the legislature to put it on the ballot, it takes a 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate. So this doesn't happen very often because, on changes in the Constitution, there aren't too many areas where you're going to get 2/3 of the people in the legislature. Remember, Michigan is a very divided state, but to get 2/3 of the legislature in the House and the Senate to go to agree on something is unusual, but it happened last week. And so this November, you will be voting on a proposal to change term limits from the different terms in each chamber to just one 12-year lifetime total, no matter where you serve. The practical ramifications of this are that the Senate won't have much of an impact on, because the Senate, most people that go in the Senate served first in the House. And so usually they do serve 10 or 12 or 14 years total by the time they're through the Senate. What this will do is it'll make it so that people serve in the House longer. So right now you can only serve up to 6 years in the House. It stands to reason that if this were to pass, that people would serve longer than 6 years, up to 12 years in the House of Representatives. They also put financial disclosure in. Michigan does not require candidates for political office and those who hold positions in the government to disclose their finances, their sources of income, and assets that they own, liabilities that they have. So essentially an income statement and balance sheet for the candidates. If you run for Congress, you have to disclose that. If you, in a lot of other states, their state candidates have to disclose that. It is not required in Michigan. That's part of this proposal as well. So it changes term limits. It adds financial disclosure. That will be on the ballot in November for you to vote. Now, we actually do have a task force of our public policy minded businesses, those who have signed up and said, hey, I want to be involved in vetting issues for SBAM and small business owners. So just small business owners. Those are the only ones who can make it to our table. But they're vetting this issue right now. Looking back at our board minutes going way back to the 90s, I couldn't see where SBAM had ever taken a position, at least at the board of directors level, on term limits either way, for or against. So it's kind of a new issue for us, for our organization. So what we do in this process is we put it before our Legislative Action Council, or in this case, a specialized task force. It's really going to zero in on this one issue. And they'll look at it and say, okay, do we like this change? Do we not like this change? Or is it not a business issue really that we need to take a position on either way? So those are the three potential outcomes that we could come away with: support the proposal, oppose the proposal, or not take a position either way. So that process will carry out over the next couple of months. I expect by July, or actually by the end of June, we will make a determination on whether or not we get involved in it. But whether or not we get involved in it will be something that that you'll have an opportunity to vote on come November.
All right, let's talk a little bit about economic issues. Inflation, still an issue in the news a lot, a major topic of conversation. And now Gallup just released its latest report on consumer confidence. So how are people really feeling?
Yeah, there's a lot of economic anxiety out there right now, and you're starting to see the people in the political system speak to it. I thought maybe, a picture worth 1,000 words. So I'm going to share just some graphs here. The first one is consumer confidence. So you see the consumer price index, inflation, and you can see how quickly it has risen up over this year. In April, it was 8.3%. In March, it was 8.5%. So basically the same as it was in March. And you can see you have to go all the way back 40 years to see a period where inflation was of a similar amount. Now, the fact that it didn't go up any higher in March or in April from March is something, right? It's nothing to be terribly confident about, but there's some hope that maybe this is the peak, but it's a long way down from here. The thing about supply chain disruptions and inflation is very rarely are you going to get it to come down just immediately. You can see that inflation has been very, very stable, or has been in a fairly narrow band, relatively speaking, or historically speaking, over the last 40 years. So this is something that is fairly new to a lot of people who are running businesses right now that weren't running businesses 40 years ago. So the consumer price index is one of those things that you see everybody talking about here today, because it's the sort of thing you can't really escape. It's affecting everything. The average Michigander, average family and individual across America are facing higher costs for virtually everything. And of course, that has an impact on consumer confidence. So just looking at the Gallup chart here in the trend lines, you can see that consumer confidence really fell a lot right after the pandemic, and then it really recovered to an area that looked pretty historically average. Look at this line right here. You see that the graph kind of sticks around that, but over the course of the last several months, we see consumer confidence falling. This is actually the thing that I look at as kind of the catch-all of, if things aren't going very well, consumer confidence tends to, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people are less confident, they'll start to pull back. And of course, that would have an impact on overall spending in the GDP. Another thing that Gallup tracks regularly are Americans that point to different issues as the most important problem, and economic issues being the most important problem that individuals are pointing at. You'll see that that's up to 39%. So during the depths of the pandemic, the number of people that said our economy is my main concern was 9%. And yet, if you look at it today, it's up to 39%, a real indication that people are worried. There's a lot of anxiety out there. Things just don't seem to be working all that well. I mean, I think there was this assumption we get past like the worst part of the pandemic that things would kind of settle back into normal, but we've got a lot of issues still. However, you could call it a bright spot, but it really speaks to the shortage in people. So not necessarily a bright spot for people that are for business owners looking to fill open positions, but Americans recognize right now that it is a good time to find a quality job. So that's why you see a lot of movement in the economy these days. But this is really quite an impressive increase, maybe an unprecedented increase in people that really feel right now is a great time. So it looks more like it did pre-pandemic when we also had some labor shortages too. So a little bit of insight into the where people are right now, but seeing that consumer confidence start to tumble, I think is kind of a warning sign. We knew that inflation was an issue. We were talking about that basically because of the feedback from our members 6 months before the Federal Reserve acknowledged that it was a real problem. This consumer confidence issue is one that could point to some softening here in the future, even as we see still a lot of demand for hiring in people. So this could be the sort of scenario where you don't necessarily see an economic downturn that results in a lot of unemployment, but still overall the purchasing power that an individual has and their overall participation in the economy at large diminish somewhat because of the lack of confidence that people feel right now and the frustration with rising costs of the sorts of necessities that you really don't have any choice but to buy.
And necessity is a good segue to our next topic. We've talked a lot about supply chain issues, but the latest one is baby formula. And talk about a necessity. I'm sure there are a lot of concerned parents out there, but part of this is due to a closure of a plant here in Michigan, right?
It is, and so this is a big story across the country, and there's a tie into Michigan that is a big part of the issue that moms and babies are facing right now, and that is this shortage in baby formula, including some very specialized type of baby formula that there are very few places that make. So in Sturgis, Abbott Nutrition, which makes baby formula, back in February was closed down by the FDA while they investigate possible ties to babies that had very rare bacterial infections. And Chronobacter sakazaki, I promise I did not make that up, is a bacterial infection that is very rare, but also very serious that four infants died from. And so the theory or the concern was that it was somehow tied back to baby formula at this plant. And so the FDA shut them down. So many of the things shut them down until they get done with their investigation. Now the company insists that the bacteria infection did not come from the plant, and of course there's a process to investigate that. In the meantime, though, it's yet another example of how frail the supply chain really is, especially at a time when you can't look globally so easily to make up for different disruptions. Just nothing on the global supply chain is working particularly well either. So this has caused quite a disruption, and really we don't have a good sense for how long it will be before they can get back up online. So whether we're talking about interest rates, government spending, Fed monetary policy, transportation issues, workforce shortages, and overall rising costs and inflation that we started with, dropping consumer confidence, and in something like this, a regulatory shutdown of a major provider of something here in our country, it's really just an ongoing lesson on supply and demand, and the way that there's this kind of delicate equilibrium that develops, and when there's some kind of unnatural force that disrupts that, it really does have ripple effects across the board. So I think you're going to continue to see this one in the news for a while. It's going to be hard to solve because naturally what happens, and we've seen it throughout the pandemic, this one is not because of the pandemic, but as we saw during the pandemic, when people believe there's a shortage or experiencing a shortage, the instinct tends to be to buy more so that you have more on hand, which of course contributes to the overall shortage. So this is going to be a tough one to work out of, unless of course the FDA allows for the reopening of that plant sometime. But even then, when you close down plants, you can't just flip a switch and open them back up. There's a lot of steps to that in terms of that, of all the things, the inputs for the processing overall. So I'm afraid that it's a very serious issue, and I'm afraid it's going to be with us for a while.
Yes, I'm sure a lot of concerned parents out there. Let's talk a little bit about some good news, or something to look forward to, which is SBAM's annual meeting and Small Business Summit. We are back in person. We've talked a little bit about it on this show before, June 16th. And Brian, we have our colleague Lori Berman on, who's going to share a little bit about a special offer.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Brian. Really looking forward to it. Small Business Summit annual meeting. If you are not a member of SBAM and you've been thinking about joining, now is the time. You can join as a member and receive a free ticket to the annual meeting. It's a great opportunity to check us out, especially if you're joining as a basic member. Your ticket almost covers the cost of your membership. I would recommend that you take a look at that. For those of you that are members already, the early bird pricing is ending next week. I encourage you to take a look. If you'd like to test us out with a free ticket offer, you can visit sbam.org, visit the membership area to join. You can also reach out to me, Lori Berman. You can reach out one of our salespeople, Wayne or Winston, the membership services department. We're happy to help you out. We expect to have a full show floor this year of exhibits. We will have express learning sessions on the show floor covering some exciting topics such as succession planning, Bitcoin, anatomy of your brand. I hope that you'll join us. There'll be some great networking, small business vendors, owners out there. I hope you'll be a part of it.
Yeah, the event really does run from about 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. on Thursday, June 16th. So the free ticket gets you access to the show floor, like Lori was talking about, 4 express learning sessions. We've built in lots of time for networking so that you can get to know your fellow small business owners and other SBAM members. And then we do have a luncheon, and we cap it all off with a program where we'll feature some SBAM news, and then have our keynote presentation, which is Business in Transition, which is going to feature 3 small business owners and their journey in succession planning. So it really is a wonderful event. You can learn more at sbam.org/2022 annual meeting. So thanks, Lori, for
Thank you.
coming. All right, as we get ready to close the show, Brian, can we do a quick update on the gubernatorial election here in Michigan?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things moving, and we'll look over as we go through the course of this this year to just give you quick updates and to make sure that we level set in the front end. SBAM has not taken a position on the gubernatorial race. We wouldn't even review this race until probably September. Under the normal circumstances, but want to make sure that you're up to date and informed in what's happening out there. So 10 candidates, Republican candidates that are, most of them are squaring off in a debate tonight, the first time post-filing deadline that you'll see most of the candidates on the stage together. James Craig, kind of notably, who's been the front runner for a lot of the year, has pulled out of this debate. And of course, he's facing a pretty serious challenge to his ballot access, that he might not have had enough valid signatures because of one of the signature collection vendors perhaps defrauded him in his campaign. And so I think it's questionable whether or not he'll be on the ballot at the end of the day. That will be decided later on this month. There was a technical issue that was lodged on Tudor Dixon because of a form typo or an inaccuracy on the form that may impede her ballot access as well. And then a challenge to Perry Johnson as well, kind of similar to James Craig's, but with a fewer number of signatures, not enough to knock him off the ballot. And there's not enough being challenged to knock him off the ballot. So I'm not really sure kind of what the basis of that challenge really is. So that you could end up being down to seven candidates or 8 candidates. But at the moment there are 10. And so they'll be on the stage tonight at Livingston County GOP is doing that debate. It'll be live streamed on Sinclair Broadcasting. I'll check it out tonight. It's at 7:15, I think, is when they go live with on that website. A couple other things that are happening though. The Democratic National Committee or the Democratic Governors Association has put down reservations for $23 million in ad buys for Governor Whitmer, in addition to the $10 million that she already has on hand. So that's a lot of resources. And what this tells you is that everybody's expecting this to be a battleground state. When you get a bunch of candidates on one side, it usually means they think it's a good opportunity. When you get a bunch of spending on the other side, it means they expect it to be very competitive. And so you're going to see a lot of activity over this year from gubernatorial candidates, and it's probably going to be a horse race type of an election, not like in 2018 when Governor Whitmer kind of ran away with the election. The overall environment today is much more it's much more dicey for incumbents, given the problems that we had already talked about. It's kind of general dissatisfaction out there and economic anxiety. So I think Michigan's is probably going to be a very close election, regardless of which person comes out of the Republican primary. But ultimately, the amount of ads that were reserved by the Democratic National Committee, which is higher than they've done in any other state, says that they're expecting this to be highly, highly competitive. So buckle up. This is going to be quite an election season. We'll stay engaged and keep you up to date on it, what the Republican candidates are doing and kind of who's moving along. And then also as Governor Whitmer's campaign progresses. The legislative front is where we're already pretty active. We've got over 50 endorsed candidates already. There'll probably be 40 or 50 more that races that we take a position on between now and election day. So keep an eye out for those, and please be assured that we are strategically bipartisan. We do not want to have the politics of party brought into our process at all. It really is just about positions on issues important to small businesses and voting records on issues that are important to small businesses. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to create an environment for success around entrepreneurs in Michigan. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have fun out there in the late arriving summer sun, and I'll see you back here on Monday.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.